Okay. You can still talk for a minute or two. I'm getting the presentation pulled up, so. Oops. Okay. I'm going to close this so it doesn't ding when. Okay. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. It is my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce Mr. Jakim Battle. Jakim came from Fort Valley State University, and actually his first exposure to the University of Arkansas was in my lab. And somehow he decided to stay here for a degree, so I don't know what's going on there. But Jakim got his degree in chemical engineering in 2015. Since then has moved on to DuPont and is working on a grassroots organization that he started called STEM is the New Black. And I'm not going to steal his thunder and talk about that and stuff. But what I want to talk to about all students out there in the introduction to Jakim, and just so you know, I got permission, and Dave can say that I got permission last night for this. I wanted to tell people that Jakim wasn't the most spectacular student in the classroom, you know, and the reason not is to embarrass Jakim, but he was always very, very good at presenting things and talking about the things he was doing, which has really went on to serve him well. So if you're undergraduates out there and you're saying, oh, some of my friends are getting A's and I'm getting B's, remember that you can still change the world, and Jakim is a great example of that. So without further ado then, I would like us to put our hands together to welcome Jakim Battle.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, good afternoon. How's everybody feeling today? Always good to hear. So, as Dr. Jamie Hestekin had the chance to mention, I am Jakim Battle. I am founder of STEM is the New Black, amongst a number of things. So I would like to say, first and foremost, before we get into any piece of the discussion, I do want to thank you sincerely, each and every person that came out today. Being an alum here at the university, specifically from the College of Engineering, I know how difficult it can be to tie away from anything, you know, regarded to academics, and I know that can be difficult as well, especially in the middle of the school day. So, like I said, I genuinely want to say I appreciate each and every person's attendance today. So, just a little bit about myself, just a quick bio, a rundown of what, you know, makes up Jakim. As mentioned, I am a native, a proud native of Atlanta, Georgia, as you can see. I am a participant / graduate of the Cooperative Developmental Energy Program, which is a dual degree partnership between Fort Valley State University and University of Arkansas, having the chance to study both chemistry and chemical engineering. I'm also a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, in which I've had the chance to be a member for the past 10 years now, so I'm extremely proud of that as well. And I accredit that for quite a bit of my exposure to STEM and engineering across the board, so a huge inspiration for STEM is the New Black altogether. So, also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, so I definitely want to make sure to include that. And last but not least, founder of STEM is the New Black, which is an organization, as Dr. Jamie mentioned, an organization dedicated to reshaping our culture around intelligence and creativity. So just a little tidbit about STEM is the New Black altogether. A lot of times throughout, my chance to study here at the university, I've had several experiences just having the chance to meet many different students of many different backgrounds. And, we'd always exchange stories to how we got to this point and, what we're doing and, of course, what we would like to do moving forward in the future. So just being able to hear from a number of students within engineering and quite a few outside of engineering as well, we oftentimes reach that conclusion to where it's like, man, I really wish I would have known about that particular opportunity. I really wish I would have known that engineering would have led to that. I really wish I would have known that anything regarding math and science could have led to these types of possibilities across the board. And so, just being able to take that and do something with it, being able to create, a movement in which we say, we are going to create a culture in which we can, have an expose of excellence with what it is that we do on a regular basis. A lot of times we get into this mode in which we're so used to doing what we're doing. We're so used to going to lab, and it just becomes a normal part of our life. And we never realize how much other people can be impacted, by the things that we decide to take up. So once again, STEM is the New Black is an organization that is dedicated towards reshaping the culture around STEM with both intelligence and creativity, and we'll get into the creativity piece a little later on in the discussion. So, question number one, when we say we're deciding to reshape STEM culture, before we can do that, one, we need to agree that STEM culture needs reshaping, correct? And even before doing that, we need to be able to decide what is STEM culture? Who is a part of STEM culture? What has STEM culture historically looked like, and what would we like for it to look like moving forward? So, and even beyond, taking a step into that, we must take a step back from there and ask ourselves, what is a culture? What does a culture even consist of to begin with? So, I, took some time to research into it, and I was quite surprised at the number of responses that I got in terms of being able to define culture. So, some communities would define culture as the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. I'm sure this is how, Webster would define culture, and like I said, many communities would define culture as this as well. However, there are some communities in which, you would define this as a culture, and you'd be absolutely correct. So it really depends on what particular group that it is that you're speaking to, because you can define culture one way and you can define the culture a completely different way and still be absolutely correct. And being quite honest, some communities would define this as culture, and that's okay too. It just depends on how, what vantage point you decide to look at it, And once again, it's available now on all streaming platforms. But in all seriousness, I say this to say culture is quite literally what you make it. So in terms of defining STEM culture, in terms of defining culture across the board, we need to be mindful of the fact that specifically here, if we want to be responsible for a reshaping of the culture, starting with the University of Arkansas around STEM, that we are the individuals responsible for doing it. And just like I said with these three different examples, it truly depends on who it is defining it. Culture is what we make it. And we really are, it's up to us to make that decision of what we want this culture to look like. So, this is just a little background information about a study of students in STEM fields. We have a breakdown by both gender and race/ethnicity from 1995 and 1996. So before I get into the weeds of the metrics around this chart, you may ask, okay, what is the particular reason that you chose 95, 96 versus, the metrics as they are today? And it's important that we keep this in mind because a large part of the movers and the shakers within the culture as it is today are the individuals that were in school around 95 and 96. These are the people that represent mid-level management in industry, executive management within industry, faculty at the university level, and government officials. So these are the individuals who would have been in school around this time. So this is a very pivotal time in which we look at the individuals that were in school. So as we go into the metrics, we see that there were 23% of all students admitted into college that decided to go into any form of a STEM background. However, there was a whopping 6% of that 23 across any demographic that graduated with a bachelor's degree by 2001, which is when the study was collected. So this was over the course of a 5-year period of the number of students that started versus the number of students that finished. So seeing this, it's very easy to draw the conclusion that STEM fields across the board are rigorous. And these numbers, as you can see, do not discriminate. STEM is something that's difficult for each and every individual that decides to take it up, with no regard to gender, race, or any other form of demographic. However, one thing that is important that we point out in terms of diversity as we look at these metrics, as you can see, like I said, it's broken down by both race and gender. So when you look at these two different demographics, you see two fundamentally different issues. In terms of the gender demographic, you look and you see that there are 33% of the students 33% of the male students that took up STEM. Of that, 8% of them were able to receive degrees over the course of 5 years. However, there's 15% of female students that decided to take this up, with 4% graduating over the course of 5 years. And as you compare the metrics, you notice that the retention rates, the graduation rates, are rather proportional. However, the concern is the fact that for whatever reason, there's an alarmingly low number of females that even decided to take up STEM during this period of time. So in one stance, we say, okay, well, there's a certain group that we need to encourage and really push STEM up and push the idea of STEM a little bit more for this particular gender, for this particular demographic. However, when you look at it from a race perspective, across the board, there is a pretty consistent amount of students that decide to go into STEM. However, those drop-off rates occur at a substantially different rate. So though we have approximately on average 22% across the board for white students, black students, and Hispanic students, we notice that the retention rates do not reflect that at all, and they are not proportional. As you can see, they are 6%, 3%, and 4% respectively. So we can sit here and analyze data until we're blue in the face, but the question becomes, at what point do you analyze the fact that the issue that you're dealing with from a gender standpoint may not necessarily be the exact same issue that you're dealing with from a race standpoint? So being able to take a step back and say, regardless of how we decide to approach this, we may need to be mindful of the fact that this may be a multi-dimensional approach. So with that being said, of course, we transition from here to discuss diversity. Diversity and inclusion specifically. So how do we achieve diversity within our community? How do we achieve diversity within STEM? Well, first things first, we must understand that this is an active process, specifically within diversity, but more specifically within inclusion. So in terms of being able to bring students to our campus, of course, it's beautiful to be able to show students, all of our different facilities, all that our university has to offer, all of the metrics that show that we have, world-class research. But you really hit a wall when a student says, I appreciate the opportunity, but I don't think I can find myself at home in Fayetteville. I don't think I can find myself at home at the University of Arkansas. In all of the metrics, they say that we have the research, we have the accolades, and we want to recruit top-tier talent. And we ask ourselves, why do we have struggles in many instances being able to do this? And it's much more than just diversity. It's much more than just the funding to be able to do so. We have to be able to provide an environment where each and every individual here feels at home. And the only way that it's possible to do that is if we make the decision that everybody, regardless of how they look, regardless of how they behave, everybody can find a sense of belonging here. And so with that, I've had the chance to have a number of conversations with Dr. Jamie about the U of A's focus on diversity, about even his own opinion on diversity and inclusion. And I truly believe that we are making strides and moving along in the right direction to do so. But one thing that I want to make sure that we continue to highlight is that diversity and inclusion is a very, very active process. And it doesn't work when you have one professor that believes in diversity. It doesn't work when you have one department head that believes in diversity, or even though the dean is the big guy at the College of Engineering, even just having one dean believe in diversity, that won't necessarily change that culture as much as having an entire group, an entire collective community of students, of faculty, of executive leaders that all can get behind this in one cohesive, collective fashion to say, we support this environment. We support all of our students being able to feel at home with this community that we had the chance to develop. And the reason I want to focus so much on it being an active decision from each and every individual is because a lot of times you have some champions for diversity, and then you have some people that say, well, I'm not really against diversity. I don't want it to be less diverse. I just don't want to stick my neck out there. I don't want to be the person that, goes up to bat. And understanding that diversity isn't something that you can support in a very passive fashion. And you may ask why. Like, I don't want to block anybody from getting in here. I just don't want to be I don't have the time. I don't want to be an active part of that change. And we get to the point of indecision. And so in the event that you decide to be indecisive on whether or not you want to be a part of a diverse and inclusive community, you eventually, in a sense, forfeit your vote. You forfeit your voice on your stance on this as a collective community. And the latent problem that lies when we do something like that is the fact that a lot of times, we don't recognize that indecision is a decision within itself. So when you step to the side and say, I don't really have a voice on that, we're always alarmed when other people come up and say that they do. So it leaves us in a very, very ugly position when we say, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not what Arkansas engineering looks like. That's not how I feel. But we've gotten so used to having a passive stance on things that when people get up and take an active stance on it, a lot of times it's too late, to voice our opinion. It's way too late to be able to stand up and say, well, that's not reflective of the community when there was no information out there to be given. And now you have somebody that actively represents, or in their mind actively represents the University of Arkansas when there was a blank slate, an open canvas. And so even though I'm sure we're all familiar with this, we're all familiar with the incident, with the image, the part that saddens me the most in terms of, one, being an alum, and two, knowing in my heart of hearts that this isn't what I would like for my alma mater to look like, and knowing that I feel strongly against it and want to be a part of a collective change in denouncing this and making sure that, students that would like to go or have any remote interest in the University of Arkansas don't refer to this and don't use this as their benchmark for when they decide, what institution they're going to go to. But in order for us to understand that, we have to understand the impact that stuff like this has. Unfortunately, it would be one thing if this was just one, result. If I type in Arkansas engineering and, this is just a blip on the radar. But in many instances, if you were to Google Arkansas engineering today, this is 3 of the top 10 results that would come up. So even though it may be easy to overlook it one time around, as you continue to see it again and again, and you say, well, I'm looking for the more positive examples, and there aren't as many, it can be very difficult to form an accurate opinion on what Arkansas engineering actually looks like, on what the University of Arkansas actually looks like. Especially, like I said, when you have a blank slate and you're someone coming from out of town, you don't have, a background in which you know how beautiful Northwest Arkansas is. You know about the number of different research projects that are going on. Even being an alum here, having the chance to meet with all of the different students and faculty today and getting brought up to speed on a lot of the things that are going here, I would love to, be able to move about and go to many different places and tell people how proud I am as an alum, but we have to be able to undo things like this as we continue, to progress throughout time and throughout our community. So that brings about the question. We've discussed a little bit about STEM culture, and now it's time to understand exactly where our responsibility comes into play. So knowing that, being indecisive in terms of something like that isn't necessarily the best way to go, because sometimes people have their mind made up, way more than we do, in a polar opposite fashion. So we must understand the responsibility of what it means to be a student at the University of Arkansas. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the University of Arkansas being referred to as the flagship institution in the state of Arkansas. Right. So this is something that we tout. This is something that we're proud of. This is something that we remind people of, each and every chance that we get, being a proud alum, being a proud student, being a proud member of the community. However, in its definition alone, when you refer to something like the flagship, in its literal sense, it has, somewhat of a nautical background in which you literally refer to the ship that would be carrying the admiral. And it's important that we understand that when you refer to a flagship institution, it's important that we view ourselves as the leader, as a vanguard, as a culture change agent moving forward. And once again, that goes back to the fact that that's a very, very, very active process. And you can't do so from the sidelines. You can't do so with indecision. So it's very important that we understand not just the problems that we're dealing with, but what role that we want to take in being able to provide a solution for doing so. So I also want to take the time out, of course, to discuss a little bit about STEM is the New Black. I've had the chance to meet many different individuals, students, faculty, and just members of the community across the board. And of course, you get question after question after question. What does it mean? When was it started? Who can be a part of it? Can I be a part of it? Can I get a shirt? All of these different things. And so, like I said, a little bit about the beginning, a little bit about the inspiration behind, tying everything together from the bio. STEM is the New Black is an organization that is dedicated towards reshaping this culture with intelligence and creativity. I had the chance to talk with Dr. English this morning, and we talked a little bit about the fact that a lot of times we go into, such difficult arenas, such technologically sound arenas, and we take on these challenges from an engineering standpoint, from a STEM standpoint. A lot of times we lose sight of the things that we find fun. A lot of times we lose sight of creativity altogether, and just being able to be a part of a culture that embraces intelligence 100% in every form of it, but also doesn't require you to forfeit any bit of your creativity. I know that Dr. Jamie wanted to have the chance to have the video play earlier, but for anybody that may not have been as familiar, it was a a video project that we had the chance to work on in thermodynamics. And so we simply had a class project, and when you take, a section of what we were working on at the time, a chapter, a concept, and you do something creative. So of course, we made a rap video. So we had the chance to exhibit not only how proficient we can be with the concepts in thermodynamics, but also just, being able to exercise some of those more creative muscles as well. And so being able to be a part of a culture like that allows you to really say, I can go into engineering, I can go into medicine, I can go into nursing, I can go into all of these different things and still be, just as artistic as I would like to be. I can still play the sax if I want to. I can still, have the chance to play the piano. I can still be the artist that I've always liked to be. I can still take up all of these different hobbies, and never having to consider whether or not you need to sacrifice one for the other. And of course, this is something that is important within all communities, but oftentimes we see this way too often in underrepresented communities, where you truly feel as if the only way that you can find any form of success is through, some artistic capability, as if intelligence isn't the most likely way of getting you to where it is that you would like to be in life. I had the chance to start STEM is the New Black back in 2017, and one of the, I guess, anecdotes from being able to go into one of the different schools that I had the chance to visit, a close friend of mine was teaching in the 8th grade, and he had the chance to, tell me to come in and talk to the students, just tell them a little bit about what you do. So I currently work as a sales engineer, a technical sales engineer. I have my background, of course, in chemistry and chemical engineering, but it segues a little bit from the laboratory research setup. So, of course, being able to want to go in to talk to students and say, everybody who becomes an engineer doesn't work at a lab. Everybody who becomes an engineer isn't a research professor. But before we can even get to that part, I had the chance to talk to another one of the teachers, and she said, I'm going to warn you. I know you have a very powerful message about STEM, about engineering, about all of these things. But I guarantee these students don't listen to anybody unless they think you know how to play ball or you know how to rap. So with that being said, I'm not sure if y'all can see from here, but I'm all of 5'7". So I don't play anybody's basketball, football, anything of the nature. So I was like, I guess we're going to try rapping. We'll see what happens. And so this was completely unscripted. We go in, and I asked the kids. I said, "What would you like for me to rap about?" And of course, they challenged me. They said, "I bet you can't rap about science." Oh, really? I bet you we can. So we go in. We have the chance to rap for maybe like 30 seconds to a minute, and then the students literally go from, not wanting to know anything about STEM, not wanting to be engaged at all, into yelling at the top of their lungs, I want to be an engineer. I want to be an engineer. I want to be just like that. I want to learn how to do all of these things. And like I said, this was completely unscripted. So being able to take that inspiration and saying, this is something that I just like to do in my spare time and I would have done anyway, and really tie that in and bring it back. Being able to see how powerful of a message that is, wanting to start a platform like STEM is the New Black. And that's not to say that everybody that's ever gotten an engineering degree should start an organization and start rapping. I'm not encouraging that at all, in the least bit. But, it was just a true exhibition of being able to be proficient in one arena and using your soft skills, using your creative skills to communicate with people that may not be proficient in engineering. They may not even know what STEM means. So being able to have an organization where you can house all of that is the true pride and joy of being part of something like STEM is the New Black. So that's a little bit about why it was created. And like I said, a large amount of the questions that I get are quite honestly around, what does the name mean? Like, can I really be a part of that? Can can I wear the merchandise? I don't want to, do anything that I shouldn't be a part of. And for anybody that's not, as familiar, I really wanted to take the time out to say, to really make it clear that though we're here discussing STEM culture, perpetuating diversity and inclusion, STEM is the New Black is an organization that's no different. I wouldn't dare get up here and preach about diversity and inclusion and then all the while promote an extremely exclusive organization. So I think it's important that we, address this as well, that the name alone is from the popular phrase, blank is the new black, which simply means that something is fashionable, something is trendy, something is popular. So being able to reshape the culture to where we have it to where students truly believe that it's okay to gravitate towards science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and not to be forced into it, not to feel like it's a last resort, and being able to be exposed to the opportunities within it. So that alone can keep you going. That alone can be your inspiration. Because as we all know, these roads ahead are extremely challenging. So the last thing you need is to feel like you're a part of an environment that isn't inclusive, to feel like you have an extra hurdle to jump through. And in being able to do so, I feel that it's also extremely important that we identify the fact that though we come from extremely different communities, it's important that we take the time out to not just learn about ourselves. We come to college and self-realization is an extremely big part of the collegiate experience, but taking the time out to truly network and find value in connecting with people that don't look like you, to find value in connecting with people that don't think like you, that don't sound like you, that don't dress like you. And in really being able to do so, that is when we are able to move forward as a culture. So in reshaping that culture, it is extremely important that we understand that this isn't a role that's just for students. Though STEM is the New Black is something that's, for the most part, dedicated, to students, to K through 12 students, to university students. It's also something that it's important for professionals to understand. It's important for, individuals in the corporate world to know that not everybody is going to have the same path. So when you run across, different individuals, they may be a representation of many different experiences, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. As faculty members, knowing, and being open enough to understand that not everybody's going to come from the exact same background. Not everybody's going to think the same way. I had a conversation with Dr. Ford earlier today, and we were talking about the idea of privilege across the board and just knowing how privilege and information works. And so a lot of times when we think about it, anytime we compare ourselves to any other individual or any other group of individuals, for whatever reason, we only look at the people who have things better than us. We only look at the people that have better grades than us. We only look at the individuals that have more money than us. We only look forward. But the only way that you can ever identify privilege is if you take the time to look back at the individuals who may not have anything that you have. And that's the only way that you'll ever be able to identify it. And sometimes it's as simple as the information of knowing, which graduate school I should apply to, when I should take the SAT, ACT, what skills I should truly be able to focus on in looking for, my next career move. These are things that, 9 times out of 10, we don't have to think about too often because we're already here. Whereas there are people way down the pipeline who have no idea that they even need to take the ACT or SAT. They have no idea, they're barely thinking about going to college, so grad school is way out of the way. So just being able to, establish a culture where not just students, not just faculty, but an entire community takes an investment in making sure that we can all move together collectively. A quick piece, I have parents listed here as well, and I wanted to share a quick story about my very first introduction to the University of Arkansas. And and my parents' response to my very first introduction to the University of Arkansas. So as mentioned before, I am a participant of the dual degree partnership between Fort Valley State and University of Arkansas. So my very first exposure to the U of A, or my invitation to the very first exposure, came in summer of 2009, where I got the call, I got the email that says, "Congratulations, you've been selected to participate in the George Washington Carver Research Program." And I had the opportunity to work in the research lab of Dr. Jamie Hestican. So ecstatic about this, I'm like, I'm going to have the chance to learn about chemical engineering. I can put this on my resume. This is going to make me a better professional. They're giving out research stipends, so I don't have to be broke anymore. All of these things that really, really matter to me. And so, of course, ecstatic, I pick up the phone and I call my mom. I say, "You will not believe this. I just got this opportunity to go to Arkansas, and I'm really excited about it." And her response to me was, "Who going to Arkansas? You not going to Arkansas? What's in Arkansas? Why do you feel like you're going to Arkansas?" And, I'm, trying to interject whenever I can, because this has become a monologue from a conversation. But, just trying to inform her of the fact that, no, this is a summer research opportunity. Like, my life is going to get better because of this. I don't know how yet, but somehow, some way along the line, things will get better. And she's like, "You don't know anybody in Arkansas. How are you going to get there? Where are you going to stay?" And just going back to the privilege within the information alone, my mom had never heard of anything like this. Like, what do you, wait. So the university is going to pay for you to get there. Oh, so you're going to stay in Maple Hill. Oh, so they're going to give you money to do it. Never mind. Go as you please. I try to go about it in the most respectful way possible, because, of course, this is my mother that we're discussing. But luckily, I had the chance. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to Arkansas. I may never make it back to Atlanta because of this decision, but I'm planning on going to Arkansas. But I just happened to be a rebel in this instance. Luckily, it was just with a cause this time around. So I was really, really ecstatic at this opportunity, and of course, I'm glad to see it, come to fruition. However, being mindful of the fact that these are issues that underrepresented students deal with on a day-to-day basis. And not everybody's bold enough to say, "Hey, Mom, I love you dearly, but I'm going to University of Arkansas." A lot of times, even when it's something as simple as other people's fears that are projected upon us, we act accordingly and say, "Well, you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe I'll just go to UGA. Maybe I'll just apply to Tech." And so being aware as a student, as a parent, as a faculty member, that these are the types of situations that many of our students deal with. So it's not, we can look at metrics all day, like I said, but this is something that we must understand from a very, very qualitative standpoint. That, a lot of times the influencers in our lives don't have STEM backgrounds. So it's very important that we understand, when we're building this culture, what we're building it for. And being able to move forward in doing so, we will be able to provide a landscape in which we have information readily available. We have that insight readily available. We have these streams of communication to where it's like you don't have to wonder where your baby boy is going off to or if he'll ever return. So just being mindful that when we set out to create a culture for diversity, for inclusion, it's a process that no one person can do alone. No one student, no one parent. Being mindful of the fact that that's something that has to be done as a community. And so one of the very final things that I would like to say as a challenge to the University of Arkansas, students, faculty, alumni, myself included, I don't want to be a hypocrite. But understanding that in the event that this is something that we decide to do, we quite literally must work together, and we must do so in a very, very active way. So understanding that this is something that no one person can do alone, and that even though there may be people that don't identify with you in the least bit, as long as we have a common goal there's nothing that can stop us from being able to achieve that. And so, in summation, with everything that I would like to say, the speech, the presentation all together, I wanted to ask you all, I've had the chance to share quite a bit with a number of different individuals that my passion is creative writing, poetry, music, all of these things. So I just wanted to know, is it okay if I share a piece with you all before we get up out of here? Is that okay? Yeah. What happens to a dream deferred? Better yet, what happens to those that never even dared to dream? Because everything they cared to think would always seem to dwell and shrink into obsolescence, never to be seen again. I once heard a story of a boy so weathered by the weight of the world that he sacrificed all childish things and wildest dreams, indoctrinated as another violent teen in this street life. And though I don't agree, I understand. Because from that point at which he'd stand, he said to me, listen here, bruh. We come from a land where we don't hesitate to set that record straight, trading them textbooks for a check. Look, this survival of the fit, not the wit. Around here, education don't get reformed, it get deformed and sold back to us in the form of that trash. Talking about anything is possible. That ain't real. Because the only ones that made it out either hoop or got a deal. Yeah, I know I should apply to college next year, but that rent, my brother, I said that rent is due on the 1st. And my little brother and my baby sister is my responsibility. And we ain't seen our own mama in about 6 days, so what's that you were saying about them priorities? I thought to myself, we have to fix this. But how? You see, some say we need more martyrs. Obama say we need more startups. Republicans say we need more fathers, and Flint just said we need more water. How would you feel if your forefathers never even cared or bothered to consider you human? But in the same breath, they told you anything is possible. Maybe now it's plausible to believe that we're not just making this up. You see, we didn't create this system, but somehow with 400 easy payments of 1865, it makes it so easy to just set it and forget it. But we ain't forgot. How could we? Allow me to illustrate the paradox of a young black genius conflicted. You see, the more intelligent you are, the sooner you sense the scent of hypocrisy in this American dream. I was once told that only white Americans dream, everyone else is too busy working for American things. And there it would seem to be the root of a paradigm shift. Inferiority complexes say I need a bomb Lexus along with a long necklace. In addition to these crime metrics, have systematically turned our American dream into an African-American nightmare. And though it isn't quite fair, if you do somehow become successful, it makes perfect sense why people might stare. You see, I'm something like a spectacle. Won't hesitate to let you know I work my tail off. My mind state extraterrestrial. So you ask, what happens to a dream deferred? Hopefully we never find out. Thank you. I say all of that to say, it is very important that we understand not just necessarily our journeys, our struggles, our, respective backgrounds, but that of each and every individual. And understand that there's some importance, there is some validity to each and every individual's background, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what you look like or how you identify. And that you can really get to a point of understanding as long as you care to do so, as long as you care to listen. One thing that I would like to make crystal clear, and why I'm such a strong believer in diversity and inclusion at the University of Arkansas, is Dr. Jamie Hestekin. And I know he would really not like for me to make this about him, but I just want to point out the fact that we're talking about an individual that has made it crystal clear that he truly cares about making this place much more diverse and much more inclusive. It's very easy to say, like I said, going back to the metrics, like, okay, here's funding, NSF, cool, take care of it, problem solved. But in understanding and really getting into the weeds of the situation and having somebody that's bold enough to say these 3 words, I don't know, I don't understand, I can't relate. That's step 1 in being able to identify how we reshape a culture. And so I would just honestly, if you all don't mind, like to give a round of applause for Dr. Jamie Hestekin for taking the time out to truly care about doing any of this. As we all know, we have quite a few, faculty members, we have quite a few grad students in the building. When you decide where you're going to go, if you're going to do membrane research, you sign up to do award-winning membrane research. That doesn't guarantee, you didn't sign up to be a part of a diversity course. However, Dr. Hestekin and many of the other individuals within our college, within our department, within our university are making a very strong effort to make sure that we as a community understand that. Not just the students, not just rallying and protesting, but understanding that you have people in very, very high places that don't mind being a champion for the very message that we represent. So understanding that each and every individual one of us, regardless of how we look at where we stand, and regardless of how much we think we know about diversity, how much we think we know about engineering, about STEM, there's somebody that can benefit from your insight. And as long as you are able to take on life from that vantage point, you'll understand that even on your worst day, you're already somebody's hero. Somebody is willing to listen and hold on to each and every word that you have to say. So if you're imparting knowledge on diversity, inclusion, or STEM, just be mindful of that. As long as you want to be a part of this change, we have every right, we have every responsibility in taking our part in reshaping the culture. That's all I have. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I don't even know what time it is right now, but I think we have time for at least a few questions for Kim. I'll try to make this loud if I can hear it. I would love to hear your perspective. One of the battles I think we're facing is kind of a discussion between celebration of diversity and assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say instead of having groups that say, well, we're black engineers and Hispanic engineers and women engineers, why can't we just be engineers who happen to be black or Hispanic or female or whatever?
Right.
The idea of celebrating diversity versus assimilating. How do we overcome and actually celebrate our diversity because it makes us stronger?
That's a very good question. So how do we, I want to make sure I got it correct. How do we celebrate diversity? How do we celebrate diversity as a strength as opposed to forcing everyone to assimilate? I think that goes back to, the example that I was given in regard to Jamie, truly being able to take a step back and saying, I know exactly how I got here. I've been present for each and every experience in every part of my life. However, even though, I might take a great deal of pride in, being able to be friends with, members of the Hispanic community and really be proud of what it is that they're doing. Step number one is understanding that though I'm not a Hispanic individual, it's very important that I know that, being able to have your own sense of identity is extremely important when you're underrepresented, and a lot of times, on behalf of the majority, it's like, why must we divvy it up like that? And it's like, we're a part of a culture that already celebrates the majority. So the simplest things that, a lot of times we're asking for is, let's celebrate Hispanic heritage. Let's celebrate, Black history. Let's celebrate our achievements, within our own respective right. Not that it should be segmented to the point where nobody else can celebrate anything Black or anything Hispanic or anything female. But understanding that if that particular group of people, for whatever reason feel that, that we should be allotted that slot, that time, that fragment of space to be able to celebrate that, there's more than likely a reason that you may never relate to, and just be understanding that you'll never understand and being okay with that, Right.
Honestly, just saying, pretending like it never happened by making it goes away. It's not, and maybe that's a good idea to once in a while have that come up on my computer so I can say, okay, this is why I need to keep working. This is only a very few percentage of people. Maybe they can get to be less and less and less and less.
Right.
Completely isolated. And so the best way to get it to go away is to solve the problem, not by just erasing it off my computer.
Exactly. And so one thing in regard to that, of course, when that picture comes up, regardless of your background, it's like, whoa, that's my alma mater. That's my institution. Like, no one feels proud in seeing that, regardless of gender, regardless of your background. But even though, it puts us at an extreme level of discomfort, it allows us to be able to see the importance of understanding other people's respective background. It allows us to be able to step outside of our own box. Because when everything is going perfectly fine, you exist in that comfort zone. But then again, so does mediocrity. So the only way that we will, evolve as a people, the only way we will be able to accomplish reshaping the culture is when we step outside of that box. Because, of course, mediocrity rests in the depths of that comfort zone. So when you see it, just like you said, even though, it's a very, very powerful, very negative image, the takeaway that you get from it is, I can be a better person. I can continue to make sure that I champion the University of Arkansas in a very active fashion. Because if I don't, someone else will.
Especially if there's students here and things, that he's a very inspirational guy, obviously. And so if you want to meet with him, come up afterwards and try to find some time to do. And now I'm going to ask that we thank him again and ask for John English to come and say 15 English.
Big stage.
It really is. It really is.
Well, first of all, Jakim, if I could get by with wearing T-shirts, blue jeans, and sneakers, I'd declare a new dress code for the college. Dude, you look cool. Man, oh man, but I don't think I could pull that off. But I do, on behalf of the University of Arkansas, I want to express appreciation to Jakim on these insightful comments. And today was the first time I had a chance to meet him. Of course, his title of his talk totally intrigued me. And as I met with Jakim earlier today, I was absolutely set back by the wisdom and the vision beyond his years. This concept that he has, I think it could take life. It's a great vision. And Jakim, we're very proud of you. And we're very proud of what you're doing. You're standing up and making a difference in the life of people for tomorrow. At the University of Arkansas, we believe in diversity. We believe the richness that it brings to our academic environment. But Kevin's hitting on a point here. This inclusive aspects of what we need to do in the future. We must find a way to punch through. And I think you're on part of the secret. So thank you. This is a very small token of our appreciation, but it's going to mean a lot to you. It's the students' response to what happened in Charlottesville, that picture taken out in front of Bell Engineering. And it was probably the proudest day I've had as the Dean of Engineering, because that's what we represent in view of our student body and how we feel towards inclusion and diversity, and then what brings to enrichment. And tomorrow, as we think about the impact STEM can have to make the lives better for our kids and our grandkids. So blessings to you, man. Thank you. Great job. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all.